Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's the tournament finals, and it's a late winter in year 6, and I've got with me Sai.
Hey, this is Sai. I'm once again joining Lucid for casting another turn of the tournament finals.
And I tell you what, Sai, I am pretty excited that there's actually some things happening this turn. I don't know how many more nano turns I could do, but
Yeah, we
but
got a
yeah.
little bit of action here.
Yeah, we'll start off with the message here from TNG. Vengeful Water Kills. We've gotten an improved list now. We've got some scouts, we've got some priests, some mystics, some ducados, and add up to the Golden Order, 17 sages. That's a lot. And one Fire Lord and a pan.
Yeah,
A
seems about
message.
par for the course. I don't think that. I guess the 17 sages is a major step up, but those guys
Yeah.
were some of the lower hanging fruit, so to speak.
Yeah. Message from Latch here. Or Staff of Storming. Oh, wait, that looks like it's supposed to come second. Also, we'll mention we're getting about 3. Wait, what's the or from? I don't know which message we're supposed to read first, but or Staff of Storming, Ring of Sorcery Golem, who was our Staff of the Storm, Ring of Sorcery Golem, who was lost in the void, ran into a horror, and after 3 failed our save or die checks against 14 MR with 1 pin, was killed. Too bad. Would have been hilarious if somehow he survived and came back somewhere where he could have been saved. Yeah.
Poor soul.
Poor thing.
Well, I guess technically they're soulless.
Right. Yeah, it's true. It's a little wishful thinking. Even tough stuff that goes into the void, it's gone.
Generally lost. Yeah, that's a write-off.
Yeah, it's a write-off. You can keep it on your ledger and be like, oh, I've got this golem. He still is out there. He could come back to me. It's kind of like wishing for an ex to come back. It can happen, but it's if they left you, it's probably gone. All right, Latch. Also, we'll mention we're getting about 3 Earth attacks cast on us a turn now. Demosthenes thought you guys might be interested in that, since it's a rather non-trivial gem expenditure that could be relevant in upcoming wars. Let's see if maybe we can enfeeble mind some guys with domes of corruption in the upcoming turns.
I don't think that the
funny.
spell itself is significant, but in terms of, or I don't think that the gem cost is significant, but is a significant investment of casting turns, right? It requires an Earthbind mage to cast it, so that implies that you've got someone like Poseidon or the Earth King on hand. Although I guess Pangea can do it relatively easily because they have the pans, but even then they need Bloodstone and Earth Boots.
Yeah, and I mean, right now when things are so chill, those guys probably don't have much to do. So, those turns are kind of cheap right now in the game, but 15 gems a turn, if they're doing it every turn, is pretty significant. I don't like the idea of I think remote attacks are great when you're using it to achieve a higher strategic purpose. Like picking off a commander, killing his army. You're gonna do something that has a chance to secure you the next major battle. Things like that. Killing a thug with gear on it, or anything like that. It can be a great. It can be a great thing in a lot of situations, but the idea of just like casually spamming it at a player you've already beaten, don't think it's a good idea in general. So
yeah, it is kind of expensive. Although I will say that this one in particular is relatively cheap, so you can kind of get away with it.
yeah. Yeah, the counters to it are cheaper though. Like you can just make scouts, and all of a sudden the investment gets even worse.
Or water bottles. They tend to do okay against the earth elementals.
Yeah. Or even 1 gem on some of these mages, or 2 gems on mages will often cause them to make a full-size elemental that'll win the battle. So, because earth elementals are kind of bottom of the totem pole for elemental battles. So, I think there's a lot of things that could be done, but
in terms of winning the duel, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Dome of Corruption, I wonder where they're putting that up. I wonder if we could tell. Maybe magic scales have jumped up some. Oh, here. Yeah, so I think this is where the Dome of Corruption got put up. I'm guessing if this is indeed the province, it looks like Pan is just carpet bombing with these remote attacks to, prepare the way for his army. To me, that seems like a huge waste.
It's a
Pan doesn't care how many mages are there for the most part.
Yeah, it's definitely an expensive way of doing it.
Yeah. When they can just the real thing they need is what they need is the locusts. The locusts are one of the best counters to vengeful water. And you move like a pack of 30 of them around. It's expensive, but with your main army, and
Yeah,
they'll
those
instantly
guys just
kill the
eat the
candles.
minions. Yeah.
Yeah. So, uh, anyway, the problem he's having is literally vengeful waters. Without vengeful waters, I don't think that the mages or commanders of TNG are too much of a bother at this point. Um, let's take a look at Gath here. You want to do the Gath message?
Sure. Defiler of Dreams capture didn't go well. He LDRs that our formation was messed up due to the reasons we didn't encounter in our test. As a result, 6 Defilers of Dreams were lost, as well as 6 Seer, but it is fine regardless. Now, after the 6P boost, my armies are mostly ready for big fights, and I'll have enough power on all 3 sides of my empire very soon. I'm honestly a bit torn right now, because I'm not exactly sure that time favors us anymore, even considering the huge DoD factor that is still a secret. Pan is maybe getting too much power. Perpetual topic was brought up this turn between me and Pan, partially because Shib plans to attack 64 and Pan doesn't like it. I contacted Ari regarding it, but he hasn't replied for 2 days, then said sure, then silent again. Attacking Shib now there with TC there to continue distracting Pan might be good, but I'd really like to have Perpetual for that, as it not only hampers Shib's mobility, but also buffs my numerous demons, especially since both Ari and Pan seem to be willing to put it up too. I'll write more on the potential options next turn, as they are what will directly influence the outcome of the game. This is perhaps the most important decision in the game, and I actually think that's a fair thing to say, that these Diplo things are like more important in terms of what's going to actually decide the course of the game than the individual scripting choices leading up to it.
Well, what's the Diplo decision? Whether they put up Perpetual Storm?
No, whether they fight Shibalba,
Oh yeah,
the
yeah,
macro decision there. I think
yeah,
that's probably the most important thing to come of this, and that's not something that's going to be easily resolved. I don't think.
yeah.
You
Wait. So
can't.
what is he saying here exactly about attacking Zabalba? Attacking Zabalba now with TNG there to continue distracting Pan might be good, but I'd really like to have Perpetual for that. Okay, so it seems he doesn't have a real specific plan. He's just thinking about attacking Zabalba while TNG's still distracting Pan.
Right, with the idea being that he'll be able to get more gains than Pangea, who is going to start outscaling him, presumably because of the spooky astral stuff.
Yeah, in some way, this Pan TNG war has been really good for Gath because Gath got to finish his war against Vedheim and have a clean break. But TNG is kind of quagmired Pan in terms of, just keeping his armies occupied because TNG still has a big army and demands respect until he's conquered. But also, TNG's still causing attrition. You've basically gotten a situation that's caused Pan to sit all of his mages in vengeful waters for the past, however long.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a free agent. And that's what he's kind of coming to realize and wanting to act on.
Yeah, because he also sort of seems to think that he's not going to be able to hold the scaling advantage, which I don't necessarily agree with, but I think it makes sense, right? You don't want to go jump
Yeah.
into a war if, or you don't want to just sit around if you're not actually going to be getting the advantage long term by sitting around. But I think that he is kind of overestimating how much stronger Pangea is getting.
Yeah, Pangea's, until we see globals go up, Pangea's not really getting any stronger right now. Pangea's probably scaling the worst at the moment between them, Gath, and Zabalba.
Right.
Until we see globals go up. Once globals go up, because Pan hasn't spent their gems all game, presumably that will change. But okay, a message from Vedheim. Still struggling with Dominion. No real time for me or any of the potential subs to try to push out. So it is what it is. Any turn can be the end. Yes.
Yeah.
Vedheim reminding us of their dire situation.
He's reminding us that they're still in the game, but yeah, they don't really have a way out at this point.
They are patrolling their capital, interestingly, which
Well,
is
they're patrolling
dangerous.
like a little bit, but yeah,
Yeah.
they're not patrolling with anything, which would a significant difference. Well, I guess every mage counts when you're in those like final fight situations. But what they have there, it would definitely not be enough to actually hold off any real like pressure. Like, I don't think that could even beat a raiding party. It's basically just a gem bait.
Yeah. If we look at this too, man, Zabalba's got a lot of troops. I was gonna say there's an inordinate amount on the Vedheim front, indicating that maybe Zabalba's gonna finish off Vedheim. But looking at it, it's not really any more dense than anywhere else. There's a ton of stuff on the TNG front. There's a ton of stuff on the Erythia front. There's a fair amount of stuff still on the Gath front, including all these storm demons. So, and oh no, that's the Gath storm demons.
Yeah, I think that just the reason that they have all this stuff is kind of going back to what we'd been talking about with the this is what Xibalba has. They just have big piles of demons. That's kind of like their
Right.
one thing that they've got going on.
Yeah, we do see dark vines too, which is worth commenting on. I think we've mentioned it before, and also vine ogres here, so they are diversifying a bit, which is good. But yeah, a lot of demons, a whole lot, a lot of beast bats too, which indicates a fair number of Ananki, I guess.
Yeah, I assume that at this stage in the game, any beast bats we see are just from the Anarchy. There's no reason for them to be summoning them intentionally.
Right. Okay, so yeah, these guys are hanging out. In terms of TNG, Pan must have popped. Oh, okay, we get a battle.
Stormstaff Golem. Yeah, this is
Stormstaff
TNG riding
Golem.
out against Pan. Oh, that's
Oh,
bone
wow.
grinding.
But who cast it?
I think that TNG did the returning thing.
Right. It looks like TNG cast it,
Yeah, it looks like a bone grinding and bounce.
but I don't see the casters. Also, didn't see bone grinding flash up.
Well, I thought that was bone grinding. Could be wrong.
This is Wind of Death. Okay, so let's watch this in slow motion here. I think this is bone grinding by Pan.
Any triggers returning or something?
Okay, so Wind of Death went off by TNG. Prepares to cast bone grinding.
Oh, okay. It is Pan. I guess he sees it as being worthwhile just because his guys don't care about it because they've got recuperation.
Yeah. I think this is just Pan doing a Pan flex, being like, yeah, we just get rid of our limps.
Yeah, we bone grind ourselves, no problem. Because this is Pan's army, right? This isn't
Right.
TNG's army. This is TNG's the one just trying to do a budget trap, and Pan's just like, "You're trying to kill me? Well, I'll kill myself first."
Yeah, that's so funny. Managed to kill 7 Centaur Sages, 7 Fire Lords, 6 Priests, 1 added up to the Golden Order. TNG lost actually a lot, despite doing what, a turn 2 Vortex of Returning? What turn did this go off? Turn 1? He did an instacast Vortex of Returning.
Bone grinding just went off faster.
It went
Wrong
off
spell.
faster. Wow. That is amazing. Can you imagine scripting your golem turn 1 Vortex of Returning and still losing pretty much your whole mage core?
I mean, can I imagine it? We just saw it.
We just saw it. That was so cool. But he lost 98 siege chaff, and siege chaff isn't something Pangea has growing on trees. A lot of these, though, I think are mercs. Yeah, that was cool. And then Pangea goes to storm the fort.
And they still have plenty left, yeah. Even after bone grinding themselves.
Yeah. Oh, he baits out another bone grinding.
With the
Warpath mage with enough gems. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just there for what's it called? Gem baiting.
How has he been dodging all the bone grindings? Oh, he was hit for 3 points of damage. Oh, this one he got a lucky protection roll.
Yeah, I mean, bone grinding isn't super lethal. It's mostly just that, like, when you have a preponderance of it and enough enemies, that it adds up. It's not that one casting is going to instantly wipe an army.
This is a kind of good example too of how you can take 0 damage from an armor negating attack. You're like, oh, it negates my armor. But you see, it's 0. You still get a protection dice roll, even though it's 0. So you still can actually have protection. So kind of cool. Oh, God. It's so violent. It's so violent. It's just...
A lot of firepower for not a lot of defenders.
Yeah. That's so wild. All right. So the second round of bone grinding went off, and they blew up 12 sages this time. They lost a Kutail, which is an expensive unit, a Fire Lord, and 3 of the Liches died, and it's possible that these Liches...
So the Quaddle's a mercenary, right? Yeah, he's the guy who brings the Lizard Warriors.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, that's a national Mictlin and Sati summon, so not something that Pangeans tend to get.
That's a great point. Now, the Liches can't kill themselves doing bone grinding, and that appears to be what happened. I'm trying to see if it's the ones with... I don't think we can see the gear once they've died, but it's I Want to Be Strong, second Super Cancer Tanker, and Death Prophet. Or no. Yeah, Death Prophet.
Solid names, solid names.
Yeah.
I Want to Be Strong, too.
Okay, no gear... I Want to Be Strong.
I Want to Be Strong was one of the guys who went to do the farming. That's why he's super high level.
Oh, yeah. So this guy...
that name now.
Yeah,
he named it that because he was giving him the experience stars, yeah.
Yeah, he got enormous strength, too, so that's funny. Which is funny, because he has to... You can't change the name once they're in the Hall of Fame, so he kind of guessed correctly for the Hall of Fame attribute.
He took a shot, and he won.
That's funny. But yeah, this guy had gear, so that gear, was lost and maybe got picked up. And then I believe this guy was the other guy. Wait. And he also had gear. So he lost 2 of the bone grinding Liches.
But since he won, he picks all that gear right up, because it's not like he lacks for commanders.
Yeah, that's probably true. So, yeah. That's spicy. So this turn in total, how many we had, just in terms of sages, we had 7 and 12, so about 20 sages died, and then, probably another 20 miscellaneous mages. So not much, but, it does add up.
Yeah, everything adds up.
In terms of other battles, this is kind of interesting. We have Zabalba attacking Tianchi here, and Tianchi's got a small squad of... What is this guy doing?
That's an Earth random, too. Like, those guys are really high value.
Yep, this is why Ocelotls are good. Yeah, just some kind of budget defense here, but they get torn up by 30 basically unsupported Aussies. But that's what you expect.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
They got the important spell.
They got the important spell. And then Zabalba's on top of this throne with 30 Aussies that take out the units in PD. And then... Let's see, we have that raid against nothing. This raid, apparently it's 1 mage and 30 Aussies. It's what, 10 acres and a mule?
Yeah, that's the core of Shabalba's competency.
Yeah. Okay. This looks kind of interesting. Let's see what happens. Does this tart run, or what happens? Oh, it's got regen, amulet of anti-magic.
Those guys are fun.
Yeah, they are fun.
Although I like
he retreated
completely ungeared, just because, otherwise what are you doing?
Right. Okay, so that guy retreated. He's up here now. Tianchi takes this from the barbs. And then the Pangean Horror. This is kind of interesting. I wonder if he put gear on it. Like we said, there's some kind of fun gear you can put on horrors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although, yeah, and given that he can't exactly farm these guys, it's, kind of a much more limited resource. So Pan's actually much more motivated to gear these guys than the guy farming them.
Right. Yeah, so this guy gets picked off, but they're very good solo raiders. But I wonder who got the kill. Because this Master of the Way was zapping Frozen Heart at him, which does great against Tars. But I think he also got the Cade somehow. Not quite sure how that happened. Maybe the Ancestor Smith did that.
It would
Um,
have to be, yeah.
yeah, and then any more stuff? No, Pangea raiding. TNG trying to do a light raid here with some Jade Amazons. Yeah, I like that TNG's trying to keep pressure on the board. In this case, it doesn't work. That's one of the problems with like really budget raiding with TNG is, in this case, the commander got sniped. We can watch it again. But it does kind of suck when you're trying to do these budget raids and the people leading them have literally nothing protecting them.
Yeah, and this is kind of something we've gone over to death. But like when you're behind, it just keeps adding up, right? Like
Right.
because you're behind, you like all the losses that you suffer from raiding feels worse, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this guy could have done Twist Fate. Let's see what he did, because he won a Bless. Bless, Frozen Heart. Yeah, he probably should have done Protection Bless. He could have done Body Ethereal and Twist Fate and maybe survived, but... Okay.
But it's still it's not a huge deal, right? Like
Right. Yeah. So I think that's it. We've looked at Zabalba as well. I mean, not Zabalba, Vediheim.
yeah, I mean, the Xibalba is the one kind of eyeing that, but yeah.
Right.
So Xibalba's not exactly wrong.
So we saw that battle. Make sure we saw everything here. Saw this one. Saw that one. Saw this one. Yeah, okay. Cool. So, yeah, TNG's keeping pressure on the board, not just sitting in their forts, which I like. Zabalba is also putting pressure on and indicating they're going to go for this throne, which is going to give them +1 luck and then some gems. Presumably, I'm guessing we see this army jump on it. It's also going to indicate, or it's also going to mean that Gath can't get it. And so I'm sure that's something Zabalba's thinking about, is denying this throne from Gath. Because Gath was starting to kind of mass troops over here nearby, which you certainly don't want them getting it.
Right. Especially given that once they have it, you can't take it back.
Yeah. So I think the thing, if we want to talk about something this episode, I think the main topic is kind of what Gath was saying. Should they go against Zabalba? What do you think here? If you were in the Gath position.
I think that's something they can get away with, and it's definitely something that like I would do, but that's because I am like just naturally prone to action over inaction in most situations in Dominions, right? So, it's quite so much as, see player, kill player, but like my mindset is that I shouldn't ever be sitting still. So
Right.
even though Gath has this great farm going on, I would already be looking to what's my next war, and then can I do it? Okay, if yes, okay, let's go. So I would definitely be either committing or moving things in position in order to go take that fight, if that's who I'd picked for my next target already. But it looks like Gath is playing it a little bit more conservatively, and I actually don't disagree with that choice by any means. I think it makes total sense that, when you have this incredibly strong scaling thing going, that you shouldn't feel the pressure to move.
Right.
So I don't actually, even though I think that I would go for that attack, I don't think that it's wrong for Gath to sit back and actually build up his horror count. Especially given
and there's a lot of things that Gath can do too, because Gath has I forget the Bless, but wasn't there a lot of shock resistance?
He has shock resistance in his Bless, and he's running the storm stuff going.
Right.
The Shadim. So yeah, he's definitely looking to play into storm stuff in general.
Right. And then he'll be fighting Aussies that don't have it, and he can have a front line of things that are not demons. So he could have demons in the back line shooting lightning bolts at non-shock resistant Aussies, and a front line that doesn't have demonic cleansing on them, but the Aussies do. So
yeah, I was thinking the demons left to be demons to the right, and here I am stuck in the middle with shock resistance.
Stuck in the middle without shock resistance. It's funny. Yeah, that's going to be a pretty interesting matchup. So, but I think it does favor Gath significantly, even without the horrors. And I think with the horrors, it favors Gath a lot more. The other thing that's really important with Gath, and it's another big leg up, I think Gath gets over Zabalba. So on one hand, Zabalba can stealth. That's a really important, nice feature. But Zabalba has ultra resistant mages, right? So they don't have to be nearly as worried, especially if they put some basic gear on their mages.
Gath has ultra resistant mages.
Yeah, Gath does. Yeah. Zabalba has stealth, but Zabalba has ultra resistant mages. And it's one of the reasons Gath doomstacks so well. Because you can put together, you have like an add-on or really any of the mages with like basic armor and a weapon. And they're not going to die to assassinations. They're not going to die to remotes. It's just you have to actually fight them in the field. Because that's the other option that Zabalba has, is they can do all sorts of like blood fuckery instead of just summoning demons.
Mm-hmm. And we've kind of been seeing them start to transition away from demons with the vines that they've been making. But it's one of those addictions that's very hard to kick.
Yeah. Especially when they keep dying. It's like he always needs more. But I mean, they haven't been dying recently, but Lord knows Zabalba has buried a few Aussies this game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There are many Aussies that gave their lives for their country.
Yeah, the alternative moves for Gath are attacking Erythia, which would be easy, it looks like. Whereas Zabalba wouldn't be easy, but I think it favors Gath. Erythia just looks like it would be easy. And then fighting Pan, which would be hard, but Pan's army supply is really low. Like, really low.
Yeah, well, Pan is also kind of like the person who Gath is scared of. So that's another good reason to fight them, if that makes sense. This is the person who you're worried about if this is the person who you're worried about outscaling, and like you're actually worried about that, then maybe you go fight them and stop them from scaling, right? That's kind of the logical conclusion, especially if you think that you're stronger now.
Yeah, and Pan's very distracted, and his army is way over here against Tianqi. So, he would have to move things back. That would potentially free up Tianqi to take back a bunch of their stuff. So that would be a really good thing about choosing to fight Pan. The problem is if he's winning against Pan, and everybody knows their position 1 and 2, people in general, for the final fight, you can't ever stab the person losing when position 1 and 2 are fighting. You can do that in other phases of the game. But for the last round of fights, you can't stab the person losing because the game will be over. Because the other, Gath would eat Pan and win, or Pan would eat Gath and win. You can't ever. Right. You always have to step in to help the person losing. So.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, yes, I don't disagree with that. Just that the extent to which you are obligated to do that is the only thing that I would say is in question.
Well, yeah. I mean, you don't have to help Pan, but you have to attack Gath. Or vice versa, right? So let's say Pan's winning.
From a grand strategy perspective, yes.
Yeah. If Pan starts winning decisively against Gath, everybody in the game has to then say, okay, it's time to stab Pan. They might be okay with Gath eventually dying. We're not going to help Gath survive, right? But we're going to all jump in and eat Pan now. Their hand is basically forced. You can basically never is the final game scenario. Pan's killing Gath. Gath only has 10 turns left, probably. Okay, let's vulture Gath. That usually doesn't work.
Right.
You can do that any other time except for the last war.
And this is we're definitely in last war territory, just in terms of like how much mobility the late game powers are going to have when it comes to actually like taking the thrones that they'll need to close out the game.
Yeah. So I think that's the big risk. If he fights Pan, then it's kind of in a situation where everybody's going to kill whoever's winning, like the remaining players. But there's not a lot of players left. When I'm like everybody, it's like Zabalba and Erythia, right?
Yeah.
But if you were like to fight Zabalba, let's say you were to basically kneecap Zabalba, then if you have to turn on Pan and you start winning that, then... Or like, because Pan's going to attack you maybe or something, then it's just like Pan and a kneecapped Zabalba. If they have an opportunity while Pan is tied up with Tianqi to kneecap Zabalba, they basically, if they win the war against Pan, there's not going to be really anybody to come back and fight them except Erythia.
Right.
So,
And we've already seen that Erythia is kind of flagging behind the other late game powers in terms of like how much they can actually put out.
right. Their economic output is way, in terms of like military power, they're producing way less than every other player. And they're not using it as well, right? Like the other players are getting a lot more bang for their buck out of every gold
That
or
was kind of
gem.
more what I was thinking is just, outside of the whole econ thing, their stuff has just kind of been dying every time we've been seeing it in action.
Right. Yeah. So, global situation. I'll pull up the thrones. People were asking in some of the recent episodes that we at least pull this up. We'll just do a summary real quick. Erythia has 3 thrones. Pangea has 3 thrones. Tianchi has 1, though this is about to probably go to Zabalba. Agartha has 1, and Gath has 3. I'm not sure who has the Throne of Misfortune. I think Gath does. But whoever has it doesn't want to claim it. So basically 3 or 4 thrones on everybody. It's 8 thrones to win, 15 throne points, but with one of them being a level 1, it means if you have 8, you'll always win. So, still a ways away from a throne rush.
The thing is that as the game goes late, the mobility increases, right? Because you have stuff like astral travel, Stygian paths, and fairy trod to actually bring armies around. So once you're in the point where you can do that in bulk, and especially like Xibalba with their just like, everything flies situation, it's pretty easy to get enough stuff to a throne to just instantly pop it. Like that Gath throne may look like it's 3 provinces in, right? But Xibalba can get there if Storm isn't up.
Right. But there are things too really poorly. This Erythia throne is just begging for attention. This Erythia throne, this actually, starting to look at it, you could see how Zabalba could start calculating, these are 2 thrones maybe they could just take. Or anybody, Gath, Pan, you start. I wonder how many. All the Erythia thrones are basically free if somebody can 1 turn pop them. And then,
and unfortunately, I think a lot of that freeness just comes from the fact that you don't really have high hopes of this player defending it.
You're right. This Pan throne is also empty. This Pan throne is empty. Yeah, there's a lot of sort of empty thrones, and these Pan thrones aren't even wizard towers. They're just, this one's at least level 3, but that's also something to think about doing in the late game. Is tearing down your your forts one at a time and putting in wizard towers for your thrones.
Yeah, just for the added defense. I could see that for sure.
Gath doesn't need to because they get these super high powered citadels, these giant citadels, which are super expensive, but they have really good siege defense.
The other thing that Gath gets though is they can do that with blood, right? So even though they have those citadels, they don't necessarily want those to be their forts just because they're so expensive.
Right. Yeah. The ones, the Citadel of Power you get from blood is only 350 siege defense, but still pretty good.
It's only 350?
No, 750.
Yeah,
750. Yeah, 750.
Yeah, 750 is okay.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's not as good as a giant citadel, but it's pretty okay.
Yeah, or Wizard Tower, which is 1,000. So, I don't think that there are hardly any Wizard Towers this game, which is a little surprising. It's normally something you see start kind of popping on the late game.
We saw those where people were pushing. So not so much as a thing that you're getting for the defense, so much as you want to like push in, get your fort up, and in terms of grinding down the other player. That's where we've actually been seeing them be used.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we've covered this. It looks like Gath has a lot of good options, but I think I approve his option fighting Zabalba. What do you have any kind of closing thoughts here?
Oh, I actually was just saying that I approve of his taking it slow. That Zabalba is a good option, but no shame in looking at it. But I also don't think that he needs to be in any hurry in order to actually take that fight.
Yeah.
Even if as a player I wouldn't make that same decision. I would probably be doing much more poorly by trying to jump the gun here.
Yeah. My dogs are like attacking me. They're making so much noise. I'm sure the recording's all messed up. They really want to go outside.
You can let them out. I
We probably
actually,
should end it here.
this is the first time I've actually heard them. Because most of the time,
All right.
yeah, most of the time people be like, "Oh no, my dogs are like begging for attention." I'll be like, "Well, sounds good to me," or "It sounds
Yeah,
good on
they're
my
like,
end."
one of them's headbutting my arm. They're both panting. They just started jumping on the mic. I'm like, okay, 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 okay.
Yeah,
Um,
dogs are great.
but yeah. All right. Thanks so much for joining me, though, Sai.
Yeah, absolutely. These are always fun.
Yeah, viewers, as always, if you made it to the end, we sincerely appreciate it, and hope you're looking forward to seeing how this all ends. I know I certainly am. So, yeah, until then, see ya.
You're in.